At dawn, the English countryside looks peaceful from 10,000 feet. Fields stitched together like a quilt. Rivers silvered by early light. Small towns still asleep under thin autumn fog. From the ground, nothing hints at war. But above it all, the sky is already crowded with engines. 4 Wright cyclone radials throb in synchronized violence, each one shaking aluminum skin, steel spars, and the men strapped inside. The sound is not loud, it is physical. It presses into the chest. It rattles teeth. It vibrates bones. AB-17 Flying Fortress lumbers eastward, heavy with fuel, bombs, and fear. Behind it, and beside it, and above it, and below it, are dozens more. A full U.S. Army Air Force's bomber squadron, part of a larger group, part of a massive 8th Air Force formation stretching for miles. Hundreds of aircraft. Thousands of men. One mission. Germany. It is late 1944. The war in Europe is turning, but it is far from over. The Luftwaffe is wounded, not dead. German flak batteries still ring cities and factories in iron. And winter is coming, bringing stronger winds, colder air, and fuel calculations that leave no margin for error. Inside the lead aircraft of the squadron, the pilot, First Lieutenant Robert Bob Harding, keeps his eyes moving. A glance at the artificial horizon. A check of airspeed. A look at the fuel gauges. 4 needles. 4 tanks. Slowly, steadily, ticking downward. Harding is 26 years old. He has flown 32 combat missions. Enough to know that fuel is never just a number on a chart. Fuel is time. Fuel is distance. Fuel is survival. Before dawn, the mission briefing was clinical and precise. Target: synthetic oil refinery near Merseburg, Germany. Distance: nearly 1,100 miles round trip. Expected resistance: heavy flak, possible fighter interception. Weather: deteriorating over the continent. Strong headwinds forecast at altitude. Fuel calculations had been tight, but acceptable. Each aircraft loaded to maximum safe capacity. Enough, according to doctrine, to reach the target, fight their way through, and return to base with a narrow reserve. But acceptable and forgiving are not the same thing. As the formation crosses the Dutch coast and heads inland, Harding's co-pilot leans closer. "Fuel burns a little high," he says quietly. Harding nods. He already knows. The headwinds are worse than forecast. Stronger. Persistent. Invisible fists pushing against the bombers, forcing engines to work harder just to maintain formation speed. On the navigator's table, charts are marked and remarked. Drift lines adjusted. Estimated times updated again, and again, and again. Every recalculation shaves minutes from the margin. Every minute costs fuel. The men don't talk much now. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been said in previous missions. Instead, each man retreats into his own ritual. The bombardier checks his northern sight, again. The radio operator listens to the low hiss of static and clipped voices from other aircraft. The gunners scan empty sky, fingers resting on triggers, eyes straining against the cold. The smell inside the bomber is familiar and sharp: oil, hydraulic fluid, heated metal, sweat trapped in wool and leather. At 25,000 feet, the temperature is far below zero. Frost creeps along the inside of the windows. Breath crystallizes in the air. And the engines keep burning fuel. Steadily. Relentlessly. By the time the bombers reach the initial point, where the formation straightens and commits to the bomb run, the problem is already there, quietly waiting. They just don't know how bad it's going to get. The flak begins 5 minutes before the target. At first, it's distant. Black puffs blooming far below the formation. Harmless looking, almost slow. Then it climbs. Explosions snap closer, sharper. Steel fragments rattle against fuselages like thrown gravel. The sky fills with black bursts, each one carefully calculated by German gunners to intersect altitude, speed, and course. Inside Harding's B-17, the aircraft shudders. A concussion thumps through the airframe. The tail gunner swears over the intercom. Flak burst at 6 o'clock. Close. The formation holds steady. It has to. Bombing accuracy depends on straight and level flight. Any evasive maneuver breaks the pattern and scatters the bombs. Harding grips the control yoke, knuckles white inside his gloves. He feels another jolt, harder this time. The engineer's voice cuts in, tight and urgent. Number 3 engine, oil pressure dropping. Harding glances at the panel. The needle is slipping toward the red. Can you keep it running? Maybe, the engineer replies. But we're losing oil. Harding makes the call. Throttle back number 3. Keep it alive through the drop. Every reduction in power costs airspeed. Every adjustment threatens formation position. But losing an engine entirely would be worse. The bomb run begins. Bomb bay doors open, and the aircraft shudders again as drag increases. The cold floods in, biting hard. The bomber becomes sluggish, heavy, vulnerable. Flak bursts close enough now to feel like physical blows. One detonates off the left wingtip, rocking the aircraft violently. Somewhere behind them, a bomber takes a direct hit. It drops out of formation trailing smoke, 2 engines burning. No one says anything. Then, finally, bombs away! The release is almost gentle. Thousands of pounds of explosives fall free, and the aircraft lifts slightly as if relieved. Bomb bay doors close. Harding banks the bomber away from the target, engines straining as the formation turns west. Only now do the fuel numbers really start to matter. The engineer studies the gauges. We're burning more than planned, he says. Headwinds are killing us. Harding doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Across the radio, voices overlap. Fuel state critical. Lost an engine over the target. Anybody else seeing this burn rate? The navigator leans forward. Lieutenant, at this rate, we're not making it back to base. Harding feels the words land like a physical weight. How bad? If nothing changes, we'll be dry 50 miles short. 50 miles. Not over England. Not over friendly territory. Over the North Sea. And they're not alone. One by one, aircraft across the squadron report similar numbers. Some are worse: damaged engines, fuel leaks, battle scars hidden beneath paint and grime. The realization spreads quietly, then all at once. This isn't a single plane problem. This is a squadron problem. Men start doing the math in their heads. Water temperature. Ditching procedures. Survival time in the North Sea. Harding listens to the radio traffic, heart pounding, and understands the truth. If they fly home by the book, most of them won't make it. Harding had been taught fuel management the same way every USAAF pilot was. Cruise settings. Mixture controls. Power charts. Standard operating procedures. And one rule stood above the rest. Never intentionally shut down a good engine in combat. A 4-engine bomber was designed to survive damage, not to gamble with it. Engines provided redundancy. Power meant altitude, speed, control. Shutting one down, intentionally, was considered reckless. Dangerous. Possibly grounds for court-martial if it led to a loss. But Harding had something most younger pilots didn't. Experience. Before the war, he had flown long-range transport routes across the United States. Over deserts. Over mountains. Places where fuel planning wasn't theoretical, it was survival. He had learned that engines didn't care about doctrine. They cared about physics. Drag. Power. Consumption. And he remembered something from a stateside instructor who had gone off script once, late at night, after most of the class had left. If you ever have to choose, the instructor had said quietly, between burning fuel to keep all engines turning, or burning less by shutting one down and feathering it, the book won't save you. Your judgment might. Harding looks again at the fuel gauges. Then at the engine instruments. Then at the formation outside, dozens of bombers flying straight into a fuel wall. His co-pilot notices his expression. What are you thinking? Harding hesitates. He knows how it will sound. I think, if we keep flying like this, we lose most of the squadron. The engineer looks up sharply. And your alternative is? Harding exhales. We shut down engines. 1 per aircraft. Feather the props. Fly home on 3. Silence. The engineer stares at him. You can't do that, he says. Not out here. Not with flak damage and icing and... I know, Harding replies. But hear me out. He explains quickly. A windmilling prop creates enormous drag, like a giant air brake. Feathering aligns the blades with the airflow, reducing drag dramatically. With one engine shut down and feathered, total fuel flow drops more than the loss of power hurts performance, especially if airspeed is managed carefully. Lower RPM. Lean mixture to the edge of roughness. Cowl flaps closed as much as temperatures allow. Slightly reduced formation speed. The engineer shakes his head. If one more engine quits, we ditch anyway, Harding says. Same outcome as running dry. This at least gives us a chance. The co-pilot swallows. And command? Harding looks at the radio. They'll never approve it. Not officially. This is the moment. The one every combat story eventually reaches. Do you follow the rules? Or do you try something that might save lives, and end your career if it fails? Harding keys the microphone, switching to the squadron frequency. This is lead, he says. His voice is steady, calm. Listen up. Dozens of crews hear it. We're all seeing the same numbers. If we continue standard cruise, most of us won't make the coast. A pause. I'm recommending an emergency fuel conservation procedure. Voluntary. 1 engine shutdown and feather, per aircraft, when safe. Fly 3 engine crews. Another pause, longer this time. Then voices. Are you serious? That's against orders. You shut down a good engine and lose another, you're done. Harding waits until the radio settles. I know the risk, he says. I'm doing it on lead. You can follow, or not. Your call. He looks at his crew. Engineer, secure number 3. The engineer hesitates for half a second. Then he reaches forward. Throttle idle. Mixture, cut off. Prop feather. The engine coughs once, then goes silent. The vibration changes instantly. The aircraft feels different, lighter, stranger. Fuel flow drops. Harding watches the gauges. This is either going to work, or it's going to kill them. The silence of a shut-down engine is unsettling. On AB-17, the 4 engines blend into a constant roar, a living thing. Removing one leaves a hole in the sound, an absence that draws attention to itself. The engineer watches cylinder head temperatures stabilize. Oil pressure drops to 0, expected. The feathered propeller stops windmilling, blades aligned with the airflow. Drag decreases noticeably. Airspeed holds, barely. Harding adjusts power on the remaining engines, carefully. Not too much. Not too little. RPM down. Manifold pressure balanced. Mixture leaned until the engines run just short of rough. This is not textbook flying. This is flying by feel. Across the formation, one by one, other aircraft make the same choice. Some shut down number 3. Others choose number 2 or 4, depending on damage and balance. Each crew makes their own calculation, their own gamble. Not all of them do. A handful of bombers keep all 4 engines running, hoping to outrun the math. They slowly pull ahead, and then, gradually, begin to disappear into the haze. The formation stretches. Gaps open. Harding watches bombers fall behind, not from damage but from caution. Crews afraid to try the unorthodox. The North Sea appears on the horizon like a sheet of cold steel. Fuel gauges creep lower. The engineer reports quietly. At this burn rate, we might make it. Barely. Barely is enough. The tension inside the aircraft is constant, unrelenting. Every engine sound is analyzed. Every vibration feels like a failure waiting to happen. Icing begins to form on the wings. Harding adjusts altitude slightly, trading thinner air for warmer temperatures, balancing drag against fuel. One aircraft calls in. Lead, we lost another engine. We're down to 2. Harding closes his eyes for a moment. Do what you can, he replies. Head for the coast. Another voice. Fuel pressure fluctuating. Might not hold. Time stretches. The English coast finally appears, a dark line against the water. Some aircraft ditch just short, crews climbing into rafts as engines sputter and die. Others stagger across the shoreline, engines coughing, fuel gauges on 0. Harding's B-17 crosses the coast at less than 1,000 feet. The engineer calls out. Fuel pressure dropping on number 1. Keep it alive, Harding says. The airfield is ahead. Runway lights are already on, ground crews alerted by radio reports of stragglers inbound. On final approach, one engine quits completely. Then another. Harding doesn't go around. He can't. He holds the bomber steady, fighting asymmetric thrust, muscles screaming. The wheels hit the runway hard. The aircraft rolls, slows, stops. Silence. When the ground crew opens the fuel caps later, they find almost nothing inside. Not gallons. Not quarts. Just fumes. Men sit on the tarmac, helmets off, faces pale, hands shaking. Some laugh, sharp, brittle sounds that border on hysteria. Others just stare at the ground. Of the original squadron, most made it back. Not all. But far more than would have if they had followed standard procedure. Harding climbs down from the cockpit, legs weak. A crew chief looks into the tanks and whistles softly. Hell of a trick, he says. You were running on prayers. Harding doesn't answer. He's already thinking about the report. The questions. The possible consequences. Did he save lives? Yes. Did he violate doctrine? Absolutely. The debriefing room is quiet. Maps on the walls. Coffee gone cold. Officers with tired eyes reading reports. Harding stands at attention while a senior operations officer flips through paperwork. You shut down engines intentionally, the officer says. Yes, sir. And ordered others to do the same. I recommended it, sir. A pause. The officer looks up. If you hadn't, we'd be writing a lot more letters to families. Another pause. This won't go in the manuals. The officer continues. Officially. Harding nods. But informally, the officer says, closing the folder, we'll be talking about fuel management differently. Harding is dismissed. No medal. No reprimand. No headline. Just a quiet understanding. Later missions see subtle changes. More emphasis on mixture control. On formation speed flexibility. On understanding the real behavior of engines, not just what the book says. The war goes on. And somewhere in the margins of official doctrine, the lesson remains. Sometimes, survival depends on knowing when to break the rules. Because in the thin air over enemy territory, fuel isn't just fuel. It's life. And on that day, one pilot's crazy idea gave it back to an entire squadron.